Welcome to the Writing with Purpose podcast, where I, Anna Woolliscroft, chat with fellow writers and outdoor enthusiasts about how we can embrace creativity and curiosity to live a life full of adventure that doesn't feel like hard work. I delve into exploratory conversations about my two loves in life, writing and nature connection, as part of my mission to share the well-being benefits they both bring. It's wonderful to have you here today. On today's Writing with Purpose podcast, I'm chatting with Wendy Ann Jones about direct response copy and sales pages, singing and writing, and gaining inspiration from Mother Nature. Hi Wendy, nice to see you again. Thanks so much for agreeing to have a conversation with me. Today it's fab to have you here, and it's good just to be able to talk to fellow outdoor lover, writer, somebody that just loves anything to do with creativity and the fresh air, the great outdoors, shall we say. So you are a fellow copywriter. So do you want to just sort of explain a little bit about what your focus is? Because you do quite a lot, really. You develop voice of customer, you do landing pages, and you do quite a lot in the outdoor industry as well. So do you want to sort of, I suppose, say what your ideal piece of work would be?
Okay. So basically I've been copywriting for about 18 months, 2 years, something like that. And when I started off, I had to pick a niche, and that's one of the hardest things. Anybody that's going into copywriting will know that picking a niche is really hard, because especially if you're interested in lots of things. So I basically picked out outdoors and adventure travel as my niche, which I worked in from the beginning. And I still love, but I've now become to love the direct response copy.
Yeah.
So like working with things like landing pages, like you said, and also voice of customer. I love talking, as you'll probably tell. So I love listening to customer stories. I'm really nosy, so things like case studies and sales pages and email sequences are really float my boat, because it's getting under the skin of the clients and the customers, and then kind of putting everything together, like doing lots of research and then putting everything together and formulating it in a way that speaks to your clients, prospective clients, if you like. So trying to reach the exact people that your client wants to talk to and wants to engage with. So it's a little bit of everything. So I'm a little bit of everything. I'm very creative, but I'm quite analytical. I quite like, quite geeky. So it kind of appeals to lots of different boxes in my personality, that I get to have that creativity, but I also get that analytical side and all these different bits and pieces, like psychology. There's a lot of psychology in it, which is fascinating. I'm learning lots about that as well. So that's a little bit about
probably quite unusual in that respect, because I think people are they're either on the creative side of things, or they're on the analytical side of things, or they're sort of words or their numbers and one way or the other. But you're absolutely right. When you're writing something that needs to really address that ideal client, there is a lot of research involved, and it is quite analytical. And I think that's an area that I've certainly come across in the past, where particularly if people want to write their own copy or their own content, because they see that as quite easy, I can write, anyone can write pretty much, and I'll do that myself. But that's an area that they miss, isn't it? It's like, well, who is your customer? They're not just somebody that fits, they live in a certain area and they're of a certain age. They've got emotions, they've got problems, they've got pains, they've got motivations. And it's great that you kind of enjoy the research part, because it's quite important, isn't it, of sort of, I suppose, developing those client personas, and then from that you can do the voice of.
Definitely. I was talking to one of my mentors the other day, and she was kind of saying, it's almost a 70-30 split on research and writing, as in research being the heavier one,
Yeah.
because once you do your research properly,
Yeah.
then your writing just flows. It just
Yeah.
comes along easy. And that's the feeling I get, because I kind of need to feel like I know that person,
Mm.
like I'm as if I'm writing to one person,
Yeah.
you know, and I've got that person in my head and I know how they tick.
Mm.
And if I've done my research well, then that happens. And it's like writing to a friend then, isn't it? So
Yeah,
it's like
definitely.
a really nice
Yeah,
process.
the same person is always in your mind's eye or in front of you. I mean, it works for some people. I've seen this done where, sort of business development people, they get their clients to draw their ideal clients as well as just write about them, and then stick it up on the wall in front of them where it's going to be all the time, so that they're, it's like it's Wendy who's going to be the ideal client. Wendy's always there, like a figure, and you can sort of see them, hear them, breathe them almost. And
Yeah,
yeah, it just
exactly.
makes it so much easier. Otherwise, where'd you start?
This is I mean,
Yeah.
one of the conversations we were having about writer's block, we're
Mm.
saying a lot of the time writer's block is there because you're trying to, in copywriting, you're trying to write something that you don't know because you haven't researched it. So it's not going to flow
Yeah.
if you haven't done, all your back work,
Yeah.
basically. Because how can you possibly, if you don't know who you're writing to,
Mm.
what are you going to write? So,
Yeah. Yeah. What are you going to write? Where are you going to start? How do you know what's going to tick? What's going to tick their box? Yeah. So in that instance, then, how do you get that creativity for yourself? Because you also sing as well, don't you? You perform with your partner. So is that like an
yeah.
outlet or an inspiration for you as well?
I mean, what we do mainly covers. We play mainly cover songs when we go out and play music, and I mean, it is a nice outlet for us, and it is fun, and I just love music, just any music really. So that is a lovely outlet, and it is a completely different thing than sitting at home on your computer in your little room with the door shut, when you're writing. So that's lovely. Um, but I do well also, or have like written quite a few songs as well. So that was I mean, specifically a lot of songs I wrote was when I was bringing my daughter up and I was a single mum. So when your kids go to bed at night and if you don't want to just sit in front of the telly, and then I started writing songs because I found that was a really nice little combination between, kind of as an outlet for what's going on in your life, your emotions, sometimes, not always. But yeah, just a nice way to do it with no pressure or expectation. If you sit down and say, I'm going to write a book or I'm going to write, straight away there's this huge expectation of work. Whereas if something just pings into your head as a song, then you sit down. I mean, you can have it, you can have it done top to bottom in an hour if you.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm talking about, it's not Bohemian Rhapsody or anything that I'm writing, But
who knew? Who knew that was
one thing that I love to do, absolutely love to do. My daughter's grown up now; she's 21. Is we will sit. It'll be like at the breakfast table on a Sunday morning or something, if she's home from uni, and one of us will grab a guitar. It's just lovely, it's like that kind of, oh, my life couldn't be much happier than this, I know. It's just a lovely moment. Kind of, the thing with music is it's that collaboration with other people, and I think that's perhaps different. I know some of the big writers, they do collaborate and stuff like that, which must be wonderful. But in music, collaborations is really the thing. So, it's great.
So when you wrote songs and that when your daughter was younger and you were growing up, and sorry, she was growing up, and then so you kind of used things that were going on in your life to repurpose what you were writing. I mean, more for pleasure at the time, but I think you can do that as well for actual copywriting as well, can't you? Or maybe more content writing, and just be using the thing that goes on outside the real world with yourself and others, and sort of just using almost metaphorical things to turn that into stories that people can connect to, because it's ultimately about storytelling, really, isn't it? How to get the point across and engage people.
Yeah. I did with a friend of mine during COVID, ran a songwriting workshop. He's a country singer, and he writes songs. He's been to Nashville and everything. He's really quite an accomplished songwriter. And he ran this thing, and he said, because obviously you normally will go, like Adele or whatever, you'll write from your own experience, from your own emotions, and everything like that. But that does leave you a kind of, unless that emotion's there or that feeling's there, you're not going to write the song.
Yeah.
And he said no. So now he kind of has a formula of how he writes a song. And he kind of said, right, and gave us this exercise to go away and find a story, find someone's story in real life, just scour the random local newspapers or whatever it was online, find something, and then put it together into a song.
Yeah.
And that was completely different for me. That wasn't, normally I would just write from a place of emotion. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is weird. This is weird. So I scoured all these random newspapers. I thought, okay, I'm going to write about a woman. I'll find a woman that I, I'll read about her story, and I'll get some admiration for her, somebody I admire and everything. And there was, I find like Rosa Parks, and I find like all these people, and I was just thinking, no, this is too much for me. And then I came across an obituary, for a lady called Annie Glenn, and she was the wife of John Glenn, who is the famous astronaut in America.
Oh, right. Okay.
And I started to read this obituary of this lady who had died at like 100 or something. And her life was absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
And I wrote a song about her.
Oh, so
and it doesn't take very long.
Yeah, it's just about finding the right story or the right person then.
Yeah. And we actually recorded it. It's on an album that we launched for charity that another friend of mine, Paige Morris, put together.
Oh, we'll have to put the link of that into the.
Yeah, I'll find the link for you. And I actually sent it to the John and Annie Glenn Foundation in America to say, oh, I've written a song about.
Oh, did you get some feedback?
Yeah, they said, oh, thank you very much. That's really nice and everything. Yeah,
that's amazing.
All from finding an obituary from a songwriting thing in COVID. So
it's a great exercise, though, isn't it? And I've seen exercises like that for people to improve techniques for copywriting. So just find an article, find something that you want to rewrite, but you want to rewrite either in a different style or maybe to a different person. And it's a way of just taking some content, I suppose, just using something that's there already for the kickstart, the inspiration start, the kind of creativity point of launching forward, and then sort of putting your own slant on it or adding your own tone of voice to it, if you like. I did something a few months ago. The local library put on a few different creative writing sessions, and the first I wasn't able to attend many of them, but the one that I attended was presented by a university lecturer, but her specialism was in Gothic literature. So she talked about vampires, and obviously Bram Stoker was there, and there was a couple of others that I did heard of at the time. There was an interview with a vampire, and Twilight, so they were all covered. But what she also did was went way back to sort of 15th century or something, picked out a couple of texts that had been found that, although they weren't called vampires at the time, they were sort of depicted in the same manner as, the beautiful sort of pale skins. And what she had us doing after we discussed it was to start a vampire story that was in contemporary land and would be something that we would just do as normal. And I started mine as somebody going to the cinema in the middle of the day on their own and seeing this figure at the back of the cinema, which was this vampire. And I actually don't know where the sort of theme had come from really with the cinema. I think it's something that just popped into my head as she was talking. Maybe it was Interview with the Vampire, because I think I saw that on the cinema and that maybe started my train of thought. But it's amazing, isn't it, that we sometimes all we need is maybe a different approach.
Yeah.
And then we can use that for inspiration.
I think it is. You've got the storytelling, haven't you? In parts of it, and then you've got the structure in parts of it as well. So yeah, you kind of go through an emotional journey on a sales page, really, with someone, because if it's selling a product, where you're putting some effort into it, or a program or whatever it is, you're kind of going on that journey with the person as they progress through. So the idea is that, if it's not for someone, they will work that out through the text, because you don't want people that it's not right for.
They'll all be switched
on. They will work it out, and they will click away, but everyone else will go through a series of emotions about it, won't they? Thinking, is this real? Is it for me? Is it worth the money? All these different things that they will be thinking. Can I trust this person? Whatever. And you're kind of addressing that. I need more information. I need to know what's in it. You're addressing that. Bring them through to the conclusion where they come through and say, right, now's the time. Is it yes or no? And by the time, if someone's read all the way to the bottom, the chances are they will decide to buy, because you've kept with them. So you are talking directly to them. So it's really clever. It's really clever.
Because I think when you're in a situation with a person, you can adapt a bit, can't you, to the specific questions that they might have, or if you're the person that's selling something, you might spot some sort of body language, something in their face, maybe they're not, they keep fidgeting or something like that. So you can kind of address that because you've seen more things. Whereas when you're putting it all on a page, you've kind of got to almost what's the word I'm looking for? Foresee what's going to come.
Like preempt
objections, really. And as you say, you've got to talk about, can I trust this person? So there's certain places where you would put the credibility elements, or authority logos, or maybe here's who I've worked with before, and customer testimonials, and it's a very sort of it's quite an intense process, I think, writing a proper piece of direct response copy literature. It's not like content writing or a short social media post quite the same. There's a lot more to it. It's an art.
There is a lot more. And I this is probably why it's really floated my boat. You know what I mean?
Get stuck into it.
I was thinking, is this for me at the beginning? And then as soon as I'd done one, I was like, oh, absolutely, this is for me, because I just loved it. I just loved getting in depth with everything to that extent. So when you obviously doing something that's a bit more long form, it really gives you the opportunity to do that. And then obviously once you've done that, if that's the cornerstone of whatever campaign is going on, you've done so much research, the program, the product inside out. So if you need to do any more copy, write any more copy to go with it, that's actually quite an easy process. Done all the hard work.
You can repurpose a lot of what you've already done into shorter pieces, or just a different format, and like you say, inside out already, so that bit becomes easy. I think that's something as well that people don't always realize, that you don't have to write something once, that there's so many different ways that you can use, particularly a longer piece, and chunk it up, copy and paste it in other areas, tart it up, chunk it down, whatever needs to be done for a different format or a different platform, where instead of going ahead and just writing something completely fresh.
I think the first time I came across that was a few years ago. I came across Brendan Burchard, who's like
familiar.
He's like a habits guy. He
micro habits.
Not the atomic habits guy. He's high performance habits. but I came across him on the internet. Somebody had said something about his planning, like his planner book and stuff like that. And I found him, and he did like a course basically saying, this is what I do when I come up with a concept that I want to champion in X amount of time.
Yeah.
And then I use that core pillar of content. He's a multi-million-dollar business, and I use this core pillar of content, and it goes everywhere. So it goes into his adverts, it goes into all his social media channels, but it's all broken up into chunks and regurgitated. It goes on his podcast, and he basically said, you have to work smarter, not harder. And that is doing that, is taking the time to put together one good, solid piece of content and then using that to as much advantage as you can.
Definitely. And it's consistent. It's making a consistent message as well, because it's all come from the same point and it's all going back to a similar point. So if people come across them in different places, on a social media site, a website, maybe an email campaign, something like that, the message is very consistent because it's all come from the same place, and that that voice of customer as well should shine through on different platforms.
Exactly. And you've got your multiple touch points as well, where people are, they may be hearing the message multiple times as well, which all goes for you as well. Is it seven touch points or something?
Yeah.
So
never do something
supposed
once.
to be the optimum amount. Before people start to actually take you seriously.
Yeah, which is part of it. I've read certain things where most people stop is it around about 3, so they never even get to the. But they might actually be talking to people that are very, very interested, but because they don't keep it up, they just think, oh, that person's not interested, but they just haven't left enough touch points with them.
You were saying before, like getting inspiration, that's one of mine as well, is to get outside, walk in the forest. I love walking, if I'm by the sea, I love being on the beach, in the water. Anything really to be outside. And obviously travel comes with that, because then you're exploring different places. And I lived in France for about 6 years. I spent most of that in Chamonix in the Alps, so I was up on the mountains, working in the mountains. So then I did have an outdoor job there, so on the top of the mountain. So I loved that. Spend a lot of time walking in the mountains up there.
Fantastic.
Used to do rock climbing, all sorts of stuff. But I think kind of calls to you, doesn't it? The outdoors, it calls to you, but there's also so much inspiration out there as well. In the previous house I lived in, I was about 2 minutes from the forest park. And literally every morning I would get out and go into the forest park and just be in there just for about an hour, and then come back and do writing. That's when I was conscientious about writing my blog.
I think it's because that's another way for me anyway. Let's say we were talking about writer's block, to sort of lift that just sitting at the computer sometimes day in, day out, although you kind of think, oh, I need to do that because I've got so much to do, so I'll just sit here and get on with it. Actually, if you put your pen down and just step outside, even if it's just 10-15 minutes, that's the break that you need to sort of refresh, reset, recharge, and then get back to it.
And I think as well, if you give your brain an idea, this is something I heard quite a long time ago. I can't even remember who said it to me. Tell your brain what you want it to do, and then forget about it. So if you need your brain to solve a problem or come up with something creative or whatever it is, even just remember where you put your wallet or whatever. If you just say, right, brain, I want you to think about this, and then you go and do something else, like sit out in the garden or go out for a walk or something like that, then your brain will go off to work and it will find that solution on its own without you stabbing at it, going hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. It will do it a lot more efficiently. And and I think that's why it works to go out for a walk or do something like that. Definitely.
I agree, because our brains don't necessarily operate in a linear process, do they? They don't go from A to B to C. They might go from A to S to D and then back to Z before they get to B. So I suppose that makes sense if you sort of set, tell you what to do or set the intention, might be another way of saying it, and then just say, okay, you're going to then go and do something different, even if it's going and vacuuming the house or something. Maybe it doesn't necessarily have to be outside, but you're saying it's something different, and then your brain will, subconsciously almost work out a solution or present you with a couple of different options when you're actually ready to do what you need to do. Yeah. It's kind of backwards way of what we taught how to think and do, isn't it?
Yeah. But there's nothing worse than sitting glued at your desk, being stuck, is there? Or even being tired. I think there's only so much. If you're being creative, there's only so much you can do if you're not in a flow state.
Yeah. Yeah.
You just end up tired and demoralized if you force yourself to do it.
Yeah, it's like you just conjured up an image for me then, sort of in flow, and a tap flowing and everything's flowing. But then it's almost like if you're not in that flow, it's the tap's turned off, but it's drip, drip, dripping every so many seconds or however long. And, you're never going to get that flow.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it. Yeah. So what would you sort of, if you had a takeaway then to give to sort of share with people of anything to either, kickstart their creativity, ways that they can sort of get into that flow, what would you say would be something?
Certainly what I've done, with things as simple as like social media posts and that kind of thing, because I know there's a lot of pressure on us now to show up and do that consistently, and sometimes you're like, oh, what am I going to say today? And I tend to revert to my bookshelf, and that's not I'm going to look in a text for mindset work or anything like that. I'll literally just pick up a book and thumb through it and just see what pops up.
Yeah.
And it's something completely random. I learned this. Not in a writing context, but I did a walk-in library with Professor D Head, and I helped out. I was just helping out. It was, and I'd always read a book, finished a book, started the next book, and I was very linear with it.
Yeah.
And we went and did this walking book tour where we had a big cabinet of books. It was at a festival with a big cabinet of books, and people just came, chose a book, and we went off for a walk. And they just opened the book and found something that interested them, and they could share it with the group or not, whatever. And it was a real eye-opener for me. And I thought, I've never thought about just dipping randomly into books and taking what I wanted and then just leaving it.
Yeah. So something that would just stand out
inspiration to write. Yeah.
Yeah.
It really works. It really works. So if you've got a good bookshelf or a good library and you're stuck.
I've got quite a lot of books. I'll try that. I've never heard that before. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's fine. You're welcome.
So I shall watch out for some social media posts to come then from, I don't know, Dean Koontz. I've got quite a lot of his.
There you go.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. I really like that. Brilliant. Well, it's been wonderful to chat to you. Thank you so much for your time. You've shared loads there, and it's brilliant to see sort of, get a bit of an insight as to how you would build content for people and focus on that direct response copy, which I think is so important for people that are selling something. We're all selling something, aren't we? But so hopefully it's been very inspirational for people. So thank you very much, Wendy. It's been super.
Thank you so much, Anna. Cheers.
Thank you for listening to today's Writing with Purpose podcast. Having conversations with fellow writers or adventure enthusiasts brings two of my biggest loves in life together, writing and nature connection. I've been a copywriter and content creator for 23 years, but my passion is writing for well-being, and I'm on a mission to share the benefits that putting pen to paper has for personal wellness with as many people as possible. If you want to learn more about writing for your well-being and journaling techniques, please connect with me in my Facebook group, Journaling with Anna.